Yes, and that's always for me a real something I really have to watch myself on, because I want to go on and on and on, and I write stuff that is never in the books, or when characters are coming to life. For me, I'll have long passages of dialogue between them that are things that I never use, but sometimes it's just like one sentence is 50 pages that I've written to try to get those characters vivid in my mind.
One of the other things I liked in Blacklist was the character of the older woman, Geraldine, and I've always enjoyed Lottie, who's an older person, and I have to say that reading a book in which a 90-plus-year-old woman looked like she was going to just be there briefly and then turns into, in many ways, the hinge of the book, was really a neat experience.
She really grew in the course of the book, and she's a woman who was always under the thumb of a very formidable mother, and is able finally at the end of the book to throw that off and make that change in her life. And I guess I always hope that you never get too old or too set to make change. I hope that will be true for me. Sometimes I think already in my 50s I'm this rigid, finicky little snert. But
Why? I don't think so. But I do think that
I like my yogurt in the morning.
Sure.
And I like this. I like everything just so.
Maybe it's because our memories are beginning to fail and we have to keep things certain so we don't lose it. But I liked her journey, and I think the very fact that at that age you gave her a journey was a really neat thing to do. It also was a bridge back. I mean, her mother, who was never in the book, but nevertheless the presence, is truly one of those Victorian kind of grande dame ladies that we don't see that much anymore. But I love the fact that you really went from today all the way back to the end of the 19th century.
That was one of the fun things for me about the book, was getting to do that research. Oh, I loved writing about the dresses that they wore, and I did this research at the New York Fashion Institute Museum and looked at all those incredible things. And then half my mind is thinking, in the 30s, during the Depression, to spend $5,000 for a dress, people, you had lived a decent middle-class life on $2,000 a year in 1930.
Exactly.
And the thought that someone would spend twice that on a gown.
There was serious money in Chicago. I mean, I don't know that people realize what enormous fortunes. My own husband's father comes from one of those. I mean, family is one of those. And it's interesting to me to go back to Chicago and look at the Museum of Science and Industry and recognize that Rob's grandfather built it.
Must be fun.
Our great-grandfather, or to go visit the family glass in the Art Institute.
Yeah,
the Julius Rosenwald glass, there it is. And I think, wow. And I can't imagine that. I don't have that kind of, and Rob doesn't, we don't live that way. It's no longer like that, but it's kind of hard to imagine people who have that kind of money, and yet if you look at Bill Gates today, what's different?
Right.
It's just different. Sarah, I don't want to let this hour go by without congratulating you and saying how pleased I was at your recent winning the Diamond Dagger Award. Well, winning isn't quite fair. You're being awarded Britain's Diamond Dagger Award for Lifetime of Achievement. Was that just a great thing?
Oh, that was wonderful. It was thrilling. And I think to be recognized by such a distinguished group of peers, I mean, Phyllis James, Ruth Rendell, Peter Lovesey, you really feel that you've done something well to have those people recognize you in that way, and I'm very, very proud of that.
You're one of only 2 Americans that the British have ever given a Lifetime Achievement Award to, Ed McBain being the other. I have to admit that I was kind of hoping you'd wear your diamond dagger. You have a little pin, right?
Yes, I have a little pin. I love it, and I got it out to take with me, and then I thought, if I lose this, I am going to be so heartsick. I just don't want to try to take it to 20 cities with me and hope that I'll come home with it.
Gosh, that on top of the Cubs, it would have just been a fatal trip.
Right.
Are you like me, a person who lost sleep at the end of the playoffs?
I had nightmares all that night. I'd fall asleep and then I'd have a nightmare about the game and I'd wake up again. It was just, I wasn't expecting to be so devastated. I thought I had shielded my heart from any further blows by that team, but no, they came and got me again.
You know, I had exactly the same reaction. I said to my husband afterward, I'm going to have to give up baseball. I'm just not tough enough for this. I couldn't imagine how just like heartsick I was.
And you know, it's like Lucy and Charlie Brown in the football. Every year she says she won't pull it out, and every year she does. And every year I say, I'm not going to go down that road with them, and every year I do.
But it's interesting. I wonder if it's the fantasy. I've thought a lot about, you know, whether the power of myth, the myths that we hear, we want to buy into even more than the truth. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that people reject truth in favor of maintaining the myth. And I wonder to some degree if, you know, the Cubs, it's almost like some kind of fantasy that we live in, and maybe we're not ever destined to get the payoff. Maybe it's like the Holy Grail quest, you know. we're all really part of Mallory and, you know, Le Mort d'Arthur,
Right.
except it's really, you know, the Mort of the Cubs.
Oh,
so to
maybe
speak.
it could be. And I also, I think if they actually won, I don't know what we would do. I think we know that the kids would get drunk and run around and scream, but those of us who are real fans and who've been with them all these years, I think there would be this huge hole in our lives. It would be like, it happened, and now, and now.
It might be like finding the Grail, and it turns out just to be some cheap pottery cup.
Right.
You know, we gotta
Someone
go.
was saying this morning, it's the seventh seal. If the Cubs win, that's the end of the world. You might as well just start putting on sackcloth and ashes and praying, because the end is around the bend.
Apocalypse now.
Right.
I hadn't thought about that. Well, that seems like a wonderful note to end this up on. Sarah, thank you so much for coming to visit today.
Barbara, it's so great to be here with you. Thanks a lot.
Well, we hope we'll see you again when you crack your next case. I certainly thank all of you also for coming to join us on this episode of the Criminal Calendar.